guys ever heard of the term rock top? Yes, rock top, as in rocks, and then top as in the top of the mountain. Today was actually the first time I heard that quote, and I've never heard that before. And today, it hit me in the heart big time. I'm not even going to lie. We've all heard of rock bottom, but what the heck is rock top, especially if you're a successful business owner, especially if everything on paper shows that you're succeeding. That's what today's show is all about. That's what we're getting into today. Gentlemen, I am interviewing today a man by the name of Mat Lewczenko. Matt's story is absolutely unreal. His family escaped Poland as political refugees just 2 weeks before martial law back in 1982. They went through Germany. They spent 6 months in an immigration camp in Austria, and then they rebuilt their lives in the United States. He grew up in a hardworking immigrant home where pride, where discipline, and taking care of what you own was an absolute non-negotiable. This foundation, it shaped him into the kind of man he is now, which he is a grinder, he builds, and he wins. Gentlemen, I cannot recommend this podcast today highly enough. If you're a business owner, this one's definitely for you. If you have a side hustle, this one's for you. Or if you're just completely and totally burnt out and overworked, even in your career, this show is definitely for you. Let's get into it with my friend Mat. Mat, what's going on, brother? Welcome to Dad Edge. Dude, I am so glad to have you here.
I am really grateful to be here and the opportunity to share the story.
Me too. And I have one just really glaring question I just want to ask right out of the gate. Okay.
All right.
How do I pronounce your last name properly?
It's Lewczenko, just like it's spelled.
Okay, so is that what is that?
So I'm from Poland.
Okay.
So Matt with one T is short for Mateusz. And when I got into sales, nobody would call that guy back. So I had to shorten it to Matt with one T to get more calls back. But what's interesting is when we emigrated to the United States when I was really young. In fact, we were political refugees from Poland. We escaped 2 weeks before martial law back in 1982, and we became refugees through Germany and then spent 6 months in Austria in an immigration camp before we emigrated to the United States, where my dad's family was here. And so, growing up, oddly enough, like as a kid, I was like embarrassed by the name. So I went by Matt growing up until I got into college, and then, was like, no, you know what? F that. Like, it's Mateusz. And so like undergrad and grad school, that's what I went by. And then when I got into business and into sales, like nobody was calling that guy back. My conversion rates were just tanking. And then I was like, all right, let me switch it up. Let me go with Matt. And sure enough, like 60% increase in callbacks and business went through the roof. So that's the long and the short of that. But yeah, so that's the background. Matt with one T is also just as unique as Mateusz. So when I introduce myself, it's like Matt with one T, and they're like, what? And that's enough.
You know what? It's wild. So I'm going to ask you a couple questions about obviously your story about that, but
sure.
Here's a side note. I have a coach in the Dad Edge Alliance, our group coaching environment, and he's from Australia.
Okay.
And this guy is like, he's one of the most savage, most amazing, but also empathetic, just really, really, one of the best coaches we have in the Alliance.
Yeah.
But he spells his name with one T. And now the next time I talk to Matt, I'm going to be like, is this short for something else?
Yeah. What's behind that?
Yeah. But
very cool.
So how old were you in 1982?
I was 3. I was 3 years old. Yeah. And then when we came over, I was young enough to not remember much, but I do have some memories of the transition, like that time period. I do remember bits and pieces. In fact, 2 years ago, I got to go back to Poland with my mom, and for the first time in 40 years, and just retraced all of the like where I was born, the flat that we lived in, and like all the things. And so like I want to say that the memories connected, but they didn't. It's interesting as a kid, like you create these memories, and they're not like when I was in those places, like none of it was familiar, but it was also just like a really interesting journey going back to see all of it. And then just being somewhere going, man, I could have lived here. I could have lived here. I wonder what that story would have been like. But yeah, so
I didn't know that about you.
surprise.
Yeah, surprise, right? Wow. So, okay, so this started at 3. You guys went to Germany, Austria, immigrated here. How long did that whole process
6 months. So yeah, so we were in an immigration camp. It almost looked like a little motel on top of a mountain. And there were about 5 or 6 families there, and there was a white van would come up with like 2x4s in the back on buckets that would drive us down into the town, and my dad and mom would pick up some odd jobs and work in the town, and we come back up waiting, just waiting for our visas to get to the States to be approved. And then once they did, we moved to New Jersey, where my dad's sister and his parents were. And my dad's brother-in-law was a Vietnam vet who was a supervisor in an apartment complex that helped my dad get some make ready jobs for that until he got picked up for his profession, which was he's a crystal cutter. So he's a master crystal cutter, and he got picked up by a company in Flemington, New Jersey, called Flemington Cut Glass, and then he was recruited by Lenox Crystal out of Pittsburgh. So if you're familiar with anything like fine china and crystal, my dad was one of the master cutters for Lenox. In fact, in like 1988, Congress commissioned Lenox Crystal to create the inaugural bowl gifts for George Bush the first and Dan Quayle, and my dad was the one who cut those bowls. And they did a feature on him, and he was Person of the Week at ABC News back in 1988.
No way.
Yeah.
That is wild.
Yeah.
And so kind of going back, like, so New Jersey and all that, like
New Jersey, and then we moved over to the Pittsburgh area. So I grew up on the East Coast in a little small coal mining community outside of Pittsburgh. We were about 35, 40 minutes outside, a town of about 5,000 called Mount Pleasant, Pennsylvania.
I actually know that.
Do you?
Yeah.
Get out of here.
I do.
Yeah.
I've been all over the U.S. because the last full-time job I had for 6 straight years, I covered the entire U.S. So I had to go where, if there was a hospital in any type of area, I was probably there. So,
oh wow,
I actually am familiar with Mount Pleasant.
That's so wild. Nobody's familiar with Mount Pleasant.
I know. Like, I know these like random places, like the people will say, be like, I know where that's at, or like I maybe never been there, but I know where it's at on a map because I've been close to it. Something.
The closest thing anyone knows is Latrobe, PA, where Rolling Rock beer and
yes, Rolling Rock
beer out of Latrobe, PA. And Arnold Palmer. That's as close as Mount Pleasant that most people get.
There you go. So, but going back to how many siblings did you have?
One little brother. We're about 7 years apart. So he was born here in the U.S. His name is Adam. He's out there still in Johnstown, PA, with his family. He's got 3 kids now, 2 boys and a little girl, and his fiance there. They're kicking it out in Johnstown. My parents are still out there.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do you remember about? So you're 3-4 years old, give or take. Moved to New Jersey, moved to Pennsylvania. Give me just maybe like a kind of like a brush overview of what was it like? Your first 7 to 10 years here, and was the transition? What was that like?
So, I mean, like as a kid, I was 3-4 years old. I don't remember having to learn English because I guess it happened quickly, but apparently like when I went to the daycare at 4 years old, I didn't know English. And so I don't remember having to learn it, but I learned it quick. And so I learned it. I don't have an accent. My parents, though, they still sound like Schwarzenegger. Like they've got just a straight good old Eastern European Polish accent. And growing up in a Slavic community, right? So like just outside of Pittsburgh, it's still very Slavic, and there's a lot of Polish heritage there, but there weren't a lot of like actual Poles from Poland there. We did make some friends in that area. So it was like we were part of the community, and yet you were still the immigrant family. And so there were still some challenges with that. And so like my memories were, normal. And yet like in hindsight, what I pulled from it is like, our family always just, we did what it took. my dad would work and my mom would pick up work whenever we needed to. And there was always a lot of pride of ownership. And like, I guess culturally, the biggest difference was like, you didn't have to have money to be clean, and you didn't have to have money to be generous, and you didn't have to, like, those are the things. Like, I didn't realize people had more than 2 pairs of pants for the longest time.
Right.
Right. And like, we never went out to eat ever. So like 5-star for us was like Red Lobster. Like there was the one time when I was in 8th grade that we went, like my 8th grade graduation, we went to Red Lobster. I thought it was like the most fancy place in the world. I got the virgin strawberry daiquiri. It was like, I was like a king. And so like, we didn't have much, but I never felt like we didn't.
Yeah.
So, perspective was that, right? Like it was also, one of the things my father always said and my grandfather always said is that we don't make enough money to buy cheap. And so like we had nice things because quality is important. And just because you didn't have money didn't mean that you skimped on the things that matter, because you had to have to replace stuff. And so like, I remember when I wanted a mountain bike, I got a paper route when I was like 9. My dad, my parents were like, if you want a mountain bike, you just start making some money, figure it out. So I was mowing lawns, and then I got a paper route, and I saved up and I bought the bike. And I just remember getting a mountain bike thinking, nice, now I can take it off road, get it all dirty, do cool stuff with it. And I remember bringing it home, and my dad's like, get out there and clean your bike. And I'm like, it's a mountain bike. He goes, it's not going to last if you don't clean it. I'm like, it's meant to be in the dirt. He goes, no, it's meant to be clean. Take care of your bike. And I would remember just sitting out there scrubbing the stupid spokes going, I hate this shit. This is stupid. And, but it was like, but that was the mentality. Take care of your stuff.
Yeah.
Right. And so like as a kid, like, again, I paid for the bike. I remember it was $312. And I got it from JCPenney.
That's a lot of money.
It was $312. I got it. I knew what I wanted. I saved up all summer for it, and I paid my money. I had that bike so I got that bike. I was 9. My grandfather at the time, he had cataracts. He wasn't able to drive anymore. He traded me his car for my bike whenever I was 16.
Are you serious?
Yeah, because I took care of it. It was a nice bike.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, so like we did a trade, right? And so he would ride that bike to go fishing, and then I had a car.
What kind of car was it?
It was a 1986 Buick Skylark Somerset. It had the digital dashboard, and it was a V6, and it was way too much car for me. I was a bonehead. I shouldn't have had it.
Oh my gosh, man. $312. And, but you got to respect your dad big time, right? Which you do, right? But like,
not when you're a kid and you're like, this sucks.
Yeah.
And it just like those are those kind of like lessons that, you could talk about it, but until you have to go through it, like nothing's learned until you felt the pain of having to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. And I think, let me ask you a question that's just totally off topic. This has nothing to do with your book or the things we're going to be talking about, but I'm just so curious about your opinion. Here's what I find. So I grew up pretty similar to you. Like when you said Red Lobster, I laughed because I was like, that was the fancy place for us too.
Yeah.
Was Red Lobster, or a place that you could sit down, not one where you drive around the side of the building and just hand their food over to you in a Happy Meal, right? Mm-hmm. But I remember that very vividly. But let me ask you this, just a personal question. Me growing up like that, what I find myself doing is I remember like the pain of like that very same thing. Like it's like my grandpa, like he was kind of like your dad was for me, where like, I'd be like, hey, I want something. He's like, I have a lawnmower. Mm-hmm. Go see what neighbors need their grass cut. Mm-hmm. Stuff like that. And you're like, oh, okay. That's great. But then like, you also remember being like, ugh, this sucks. Like all my friends are out playing like wiffle ball. I'm cutting this grass, but then you get paid. You don't learn those lessons, I think, are fully appreciated till you're older. But I think what happens, and the question I have for you is when men like us grow up with harder times, we have a tendency, I think, in us to want to overserve our kids. Like almost like, hey, I remember how freaking horrible this was. I don't want you to have to go through it. At the same time, I think it's also really important that we insert, some toughness, right? Like,
Yeah.
you got to earn things, you got to work at it. These things aren't just given to you. But how do you find yourself now, like when your kids need or want something? Do you have that tendency that you want to overserve, or is it more like your dad?
No, hugely, right? Like it goes back to, and I don't know if it was, I heard it from Jordan Peterson or like there's that saying that's, hard times create good men create good times create soft men create hard times. Right. And then so it's that cycle. And when the boomers are like, you guys are soft, it's like, well, who made us this way? Right. The reality is that there's absolutely an innate desire to create a better life for them than we had. However, there's that trade-off, and we see it. And my wife and I, we have this conversation often. In fact, my daughter, who turned 16 this week, in Kansas, apparently you can start driving when you're like 14. And so she was like, what are we going to do for the car? And I'm like, let's talk about it. And I said, we will match you dollar for dollar up to this point on our side. So just know when you get it, we'll match you. And that's going to have to include taxes, tags, title, and any repairs, because you're buying a cash car. And we were like, it was only gonna be like $3,000. So we were going to match her $3,000. So she brings $3,000, it's $6,000. And I was like, we could find something. And, I remember she didn't quite have it, and she was sending me pictures of stuff that was like $8,000. And I'm like, where are you coming up with the gap? And she goes, well, what do you mean? And I'm like, do the math. 3 and 3 equals, and go backwards. And it's got to like, and so we had a couple blow ups and she's like, well, can we do it? And I owe you. And I said, we're not starting that. I said, we will match you once you have it. There's no bank. There's no loan. There's this is it. And when we did, it really was a big shift for her. Like when, and like the pride that she felt when she had it. And like, we even had a couple of things that happened that like, there were some big repairs. And I said, it's also like, we still have a part of this. We will chip in for half of the repairs, but the other half, like her driver's side window failed. It went into the door. I was like $800. She's like, this sucks. And I was like, welcome to car ownership. And I said, Grandma just gave you a check for gas money. Well, guess what? Half of that is half of that. So, so here's the thing. The car's in the driveway. It's beautiful. It's clean. It's taken care of. She's got ownership in it, and it was hard, and she's really proud of it. You can't affirm that. You can't, talk about that. Like she had to experience it. And there was a couple nights where she didn't want to talk about it because we held firm to the boundaries and we got real clear. I said, hey, this is the agreement. That's not fair. I said, it's the agreement.
I love the fact that you said it's the agreement.
It's the agreement.
It's the agreement. So I just want to make a side note here real quick. I love that entire situation, everything that you did, and how you staked the flag in the agreement, not because this is what I say, right? I can't remember how long ago it was. This had to be like 3 or 4 years ago. I had a parenting expert on, talks about the differences between like give versus earn, also agreements. And I was like, what does agreement mean? He's like, well, you should never really say to your kids, like, do this because I told you so. You can pull that card, but you're not going to really earn a ton of respect and credibility.
That's the worst.
It is.
That's the worst. There's so much resistance to that.
It is because, and I love the fact that you actually use that word resistance, because if it's just us holding that line, then the resistance is you, right? Mm-hmm. But instead we're like, hey, let's sit down and talk about this. Truth be told, you want to hear something really funny is that right after you and I are done podcasting, we have a written contract that my wife and I are going to go over with my 19-year-old. The agreement of what it looks like, because now he's graduated. He's got a job. He's going through EMT school and firefighter and all that stuff. But he's an adult and he's making money, and there's different expectations. And so we wrote up an agreement. And we've been big fans of like, hey, let's figure out a decision. Let's figure out an agreement. We shake on it. Yes. And then when your kid comes and is like, but this, no, that wasn't the agreement. And we never say, no, that's the way because I told you so. It's like, that's not what you and I agreed upon. Right. So I love that you really stake a flag in
just to add to that. And maybe this will help anybody listening. When we talk about the agreement, I said, okay, now I want you to draw up what you understand of the agreement and then we'll sign it. So
perfect.
So she has now authorship and ownership, and she can't say, well, that you wrote that. No. Draw it up. I'll look at it and then we'll both sign it. And then if there's any conflict, we refer to it, but you drew it up. This is your words.
Yes. Which means they had to think about it. They had to reflect upon it.
And they agreed that they understood it.
Yes. Oh man. Now I'm sitting here thinking I shouldn't have came up with the contract. I should have had him write up the contract. Huh?
Yeah. Have him write it.
Yeah. Have him write it. I think I'm going to have him do that. I'd be like, okay, now you write up what we agreed upon. I love that.
Or write up your understanding of what we just did.
Yeah, exactly. Because, that's one thing that one person's perception of a conversation could be completely and totally different than what yours is, right?
We had that problem.
Yeah.
Because she forgot a key component. We will match you dollar for dollar up to this amount. Right. And anything that you want more than that is on you. And she goes, well, you said you were going to match me. I said, I did. Up until she goes, that wasn't part of it. I said, let's go look.
It's right there.
It's right there.
You wrote it.
Listen, you want more than a $6,000 car? Cool. That's on you.
Yeah. You can buy a Beamer. I'm going to put 3,000.
Listen, she sent me one.
No, did she really?
Bro, for real. Listen, look, I said, that's cool. How much more babysitting you got? Yeah, I said, what's your pipeline? I said, tell me about your upcoming appointments. How much, like between now and when, what you got? What's your top line revenue?
Oh my gosh.
Nothing. She's like, I got nothing. I was like, you ain't got a Beamer then.
Yeah.
It's a Hyundai.
Oh my gosh. I love that, dude. I didn't think we were going to go in that direction, but I'm so glad we did. I want to switch gears, obviously. So you are a business owner. You're an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
First of all, what is it that you do?
So I have been coaching real estate agents and entrepreneurs in the real estate space for the last decade. I got into real estate about 16 years ago as an agent. Back up even further than that, my background, I got to Kansas City on a full ride scholarship to get my master's of fine arts in acting and directing. So I worked professionally in the theater community for like 6-7 years in Kansas City with a master's of fine arts. And then I didn't get into the business world until about 2010 through just necessity, through like, there's a whole big story around that. But my passion has always been education. So I was a professor. I was an associate professor at UMKC. I taught at all of the local theaters, like summer programs and outreaches. And so I was part Camp Shakespeare and Starlight Theater's Blue Star program and the Coterie, like all the theaters. If they had an educational outreach program, I wanted to be a part of it. I was a professor. I taught theater for non-majors, and my passion is education. I love cultivating the aha for people. Right. And so that's always been kind of a thread. And so when I got into real estate, I started part-time and then I jumped in full-time, and my business kind of took off, and I started mentoring with some great people and got a lot of traction. And I started getting asked like, hey, do you want to help other people do that? And I'm like, sure. I don't really know what I'm doing, but of course. And so I was developing and creating my own kind of training and education inside the real estate space early, and was helping. I was getting results for others, and then those results were getting attention. And then I kept getting asked to take on more leadership roles and opportunities. And so I started running the offices as like their manager, team leader, et cetera. And then that kept like, so more opportunities kept coming. And through all of that, there was always a component of like consulting and coaching, et cetera. And then I became a national coach and trainer for our brand. And so I traveled around the country for 3.5-4 years, teaching like a 7-week seminar around mindset, tactics, strategies, and implementation. loved it. And then COVID took us off the road, went back into leadership again, and then said, I'm kind of done doing this for others. Let's go. And so I launched our coaching company, 4 years ago, and then have been working one-on-one and in groups, doing that for the last 4 years. And now am kind of pivoting my offer, if you will, or just kind of the focus of my coaching into more of the entrepreneurial parent space. Because that's what I can speak to. That's who I am.
That is such a fascinating space to me. The entrepreneur parenting, family man space.
Yeah.
Because, so I'll share this with you really quickly. And by the way, I love your journey. It's so diverse.
I don't have a watch to give you. Right. Like, I don't know if that guy on TikTok where he has like a watch and he's like, if you find me and you have to say like, I love your journey. And like, he gives you a watch. You said that. Sorry. And maybe there's someone listening that gets that reference. That was so off in right field. I'll send you a link.
Yeah, you have to, because the funny thing is I don't watch TikTok. I mean, just because I don't even have we have a TikTok account. It's too much of an overwhelming algorithm thing for me.
Sure.
I don't know.
Sure.
Other things, but yeah, please send it to me.
Yeah.
But it's interesting you bring this up, because so this was in 2017. We started Dad Edge Alliance, that's our membership platform for men, husbands, fathers, right? And what we found is that the more business owners that came into that program, they would leave and the feedback was always the same. I'm not getting what I really need here. And then we'd ask deeper questions. Well, what do you really need? Well, basically the feedback was this. I'll shortcut all of it, which is the mind of an entrepreneur who's also a husband and a family man. He's not better or worse. He just has much different needs, and we can run ourselves ragged, right? We have a sense of urgency around a lot of other things that, quite frankly, a W-2 person may or may not have. And depending on the W-2 job, some jobs, you're just I work 9 to 5. I don't even think about my job until I clock back in at 9 o'clock the next day. It's nothing, right?
Yeah.
For an entrepreneur,
it's not
this is why we created the boardroom 7 years ago, because of that exact reason, that we're wired just a little bit different. Our needs are a little bit different.
Yeah.
And we struggle with, quite frankly, just some different elements. But I would love for you to point out what you think those are.
Okay. So I'll give you the framework, and then I want to give you context into where it came to be. Cause I think it matters. Let me just back it up. So, about 4 years ago, 3.5 years ago, Alex Hormozy talks about a concept called rock top. A lot of people understand what rock bottom is, right? It's the worst of the worst, can't get any lower. Everything's already fallen apart. And yet there's a subset of people out there, especially entrepreneurs, that on every measurable metric and indicator, they're winning, except everything underneath is completely rotted. So I was in a season of my life where I was the number one recruiter. I was the number one team leader. I was on stages. I was doing all these things. And yet when I came home, I couldn't even look myself into the mirror until I was 4 drinks in. My kids were an annoyance. I just needed to decompress. I wanted to just, my relationships were at a thread. And it came to a point of almost self-sabotage where I was ready for all of it to just fall apart. And I very vividly remember the conversation that my wife and I had on the porch in July. And she said, you don't get to do this. You don't get to do this to our family. Figure this shit out. Figure it out. And I'm sitting there feeling like an absolute fraud, because as a coach, it's so easy to help self-diagnose and give solutions and tactics to everyone else. And here I am, everything was falling apart from within.
Before we go any further, I just want to pause for a second because what Matt is describing right now is exactly why we created the Dad Edge Business Boardroom Brotherhood. If you're a business owner listening to this right now and you're winning on paper, the revenues are solid, the business is growing, but your marriage, your energy, and your connection at home is quietly and creepily paying the price. This is why the boardroom exists for men like you. This is not surface level mindset work. This is a private brotherhood for high-performing business owners who refuse to succeed at work while failing at home. Inside the boardroom, we work on leadership, we work on marriage, fatherhood, health, and legacy at the same level of intensity you bring to your business. No fluff, no ego, just men doing the real work together. So if this episode is hitting home, head on over right now to thedadedge.com/mastermind. The pathway on your right for business owners is your pathway. Apply, tell us all about yourself, book a call with us, and we'll see if it's a good fit for you and us. All right, let's get back to the conversation.
I had to make a very specific decision at that point, and I said, okay, all right. I had to go back into the lab. I had to open up the toolkit. And then I also made a commitment to document this process and to bring others with me so that my story could be someone's survival guide. Because tangentially, I was also tired of being a witness to so many other high-performing entrepreneurs that were completely neglecting the very people they say they're doing this for in order to get to the next level, and constantly justifying it with like, well, in 6 months or in 8 months, we'll be good. Like, just give me 8 more months or give me 9 more months. Like, we'll be good. Like, I just need some sacrifice here. Just get, like, it starts with the phone at the table for dinner, but then it starts like being late to dinner. And then it starts with like, I got to be out gone all weekend. And if you're on vacation, like, I'm not actually there. I got to take care of this stuff because who do you think's paying for this anyway? Right? Like, it's just this constant thing where you're building this life of your dreams and losing your soul along the way. And if you're not paying attention, you're going to, like, once you've collected enough in the accounts, you're going to look up and there's nobody to spend it with. And I just kept seeing that over and over. And health and wellness and physical and mental health was falling down the drains. And I just said, there's a pandemic entrepreneurially that is killing families. And I almost became victim of it myself. And so I said, okay, how do we do it? And so it started with a conversation with my coach at the time. And I had a coach that saw me struggling. I was reaching out for help and she couldn't help me. And she goes, I can't, I have to fire myself. And I want to introduce you to this person who's specializes in this. And I think that she can bring some perspective to your world. And I met with her and she goes, all right. She goes, I hear you. I hear everything you're saying. Share with me your core values. And I was like, sure, of course. Like, and then I stopped for a second and I was just like, she goes, take your time. And I'm sitting here going, and the very things that wanted to come out of my mouth, I knew were disingenuous and weren't actually it. Like, everybody's got their core values that either their work tells them that they're supposed to believe, or you say what you think the other person wants to hear. And the reality is that I had no connection to core values any longer. And she goes, there's symptom number one. Like, you have no alignment. So everything you're doing is out of alignment and causing friction, and it's killing you. And so she assigned me some exercises to go through and discover these. And I put them together in a workbook that I call the North Star Value Process. And it's a 32-page, 8-exercise compilation of all of the best practices around creating, crafting, and identifying core values and purpose. And not about like nailing it down, but finding direction, right? Because it's not about locking it in and having it be your identity. It's about getting clarity and alignment and direction. And so when I finally when I finally got my core values like aligned, she goes, okay, now audit them. Ask yourself, are you living that today? Are your decisions in alignment with those today? And like at the end of the day, have you honored them? And I was like, shoot, okay. So this was the first time I had to get really intentional around it. And what I discovered is that my top core values are freedom, authenticity, and energy. So those are my core values. Those are my North Stars. And so when your values are clear, decision making is easy. When your values are clear, decision making is easy. And so many times we take on opportunities or challenges because we're just eager and hungry for the next level. But again, my buddy Hermosi, I like to quote him a lot because he brings a lot of value in my world. But he says every level has its devil, and the devils that you're ignoring on this level are going to be waiting for you at the next level if you haven't figured out how to handle them here. And so for me, my core values, I had to always audit and say, okay, freedom. So what does freedom actually mean? So for me, freedom is discipline. Discipline equals freedom. And it's being able to do what's required in order to get to do what I choose, right? So doing what's required in order to earn the opportunity to do what I choose, with whom I choose, where I choose, how I choose, when I choose. Like that's true freedom through discipline. The second, authenticity. I had to play a role for so long, and I use that word really specifically, even though my background's in theater. Like I had to play a role of a leader for this company, for whoever hired me, that was so out of alignment with who I really wanted to be. And like my inner voice is more in alignment with like an Andy Frisella and a Gary Vaynerchuk. And like, I wasn't able to live that. And so I was, again, out of alignment, out of integrity, because out of not being authentic. And so authenticity is who you see on stage, who you see on podcasts, is who you see in the one-to-one. So for me, it's that there are no versions. There are no, like, I don't have to code switch who I am around the people that I am. Like that's true authenticity. And then lastly, energy for me was the relationships that I'm involved in have to have a net positive experience. Now I understand that like as a coach, sometimes I have to give in order for like in those conversations. However, there's a difference between working with somebody who's coachable versus an asshole. And there are people that like are always coming for advice, and you share with them, you pour into them and they go, okay, cool. And what do? Nothing. For me, that's a net negative drain. When somebody takes, like, if I pour into and then they go, okay, I do it. And then when I check in or they check in and they go, so here's what I did and here's how I discovered and here's my ahas, boom. That's a net positive. Right. And so all the opportunities that came my way had to go through those filters. And so what happened is that was through those filters, that coach helped me discover that I was no longer in alignment with where I was supposed to be at that time. And that's when I went on my own. That's when I went and launched this thing on my own and got the authenticity, the freedom, and the energy to then run. So that's like, for me, that was one of the biggest first core discoveries. The second is being all in where you're supposed to be. And it's about being positively present. And the three areas that I talk about in the book are leadership, love, and life. And so leadership is your work experience, your love is your relationships, and life is your physical and mental health. And what happens is when we don't have the discipline to do what's required in those areas, there's a gravity or a pull from the other areas because we haven't like fully honored those. So for instance, if I'm at work and I'm running through the motions and I haven't made the calls or I haven't lead generated or I haven't created enough top line or filled the pipeline, then I subconsciously know that the revenue's fragile. And so if I'm at home and I'm supposed to be at home, but I know that I didn't do what it took at work, well, when the phone rings, I'm super sensitive to it because it could be an income opportunity. But because I didn't do what I was supposed to do at work, I'm now stealing from the few moments that the people that I say I care about most want from me. And so like, it's the guilt of not being all in at work. When I'm at home, work pulls me. Conversely, if I'm at home and I'm not all in at home and I'm not actively participating or leaning into those conversations and relationships, and allowing others to feel loved, heard, felt, seen, all those things. When I'm at work and the phone rings and it's them, well, guess what? Now I feel really good. I got to take that call because they need something and I wasn't there for them when I said I was going to be. And then while I'm ping-ponging back and forth between these two areas, I'm not eating right. I'm drinking way too much. I'm not taking time. I'm not journaling. And self-care starts to feel selfish. When conversely, my commitment as a man, as a father, is to give the people that I say I care about most the best of me, not what's left of me. And they all just play in a cycle, in a vicious circle. And so at the core of it, it's about being positively present. And so with that, my mission is I help entrepreneurs and entrepreneurial parents get their nights, their weekends, and their relationships back through ruthless priority and massive action so they can actually be present instead of having to rely on buying presents to prove to their family that they still love them.
Whew. That last comment, like that one hit hard, because I think a lot of us, who if we've got that element of guilt that we're not showing up, it's like, well, we'll all go to Disney, like, or something like that. Or we'll all do this, or I'll take them out to a nice meal or dinner or something like that. Matt, everything, I took all kinds of notes as you were talking. Authenticity, freedom, energy. Let me ask this though. Let's take a step back for a second.
Sure.
I want to go back to the coach that was working with you. She fired herself. Mm-hmm. You started working with this other coach. I want to talk about that liminal space of the chaos in your mind, mm-hmm. right? Or maybe even let's go back to before you started working with a coach that fired herself, where you're in that space. You come back home. You've spoken, you've worked with people, you're like a savage, and then you come home and you're like, I don't even think I can function right now. Like, I just need decompression. Yeah. Here's where I've seen entrepreneurs struggle the most. It is insanely hard to break through that whole, I need to decompress. Like, there's this fight of like, I don't know if I have much left in me to work even harder than I am. So even like doing this work outside of my own work seems like such a heavy lift. I don't even know how I'm going to do it. Does that sound familiar to you?
1,000%. Yeah.
So what do we do there?
So here's what I've found is that the empty pursuit of more kills more families and people than anything out there. Just the desire to do more because it's more is the fastest way to complete burnout and the downfall of that. When what you're doing is tied to purpose and service and something bigger outside of yourself, there's an infinite amount of energy for it. I don't have to decompress from a vacation. I don't have a limited amount of love for my family. I don't have a quota of hugs to give. I have unlimited that. Why? Because it's tied to something more than a metric. It's not a number. It's not an artificial or placed on me kind of thing, right? So how do we do number one is, first of all, allowing your feelings to be a GPS for your opportunity. If you feel that disconnect, the emptiness, and just the but what happens though is we've conditioned ourselves to live in the chaos of production and think that that's the only way. And so what happens is the moment we slow down enough to do that inner work, that the deep stuff, the hard stuff, and we're not in that chaos, we feel something's wrong and this is not as productive and is not as good. And yet we have to slow down to speed up and create an awareness that the mountain that you're on may be the wrong mountain. And that's what I discovered, is that just because I was at the top of the mountain, when I broke through the cloud layer, I realized, number one, I was the only one up there. Number two, I saw there were other mountains where other people were having a lot more fun. what I had to come to grips with was the only way to get onto another mountain is to go back down into the darkness. You got to go back through the cloud layer. Everything that you did on the way up, you got to go back through and then be willing to go through on the other side. And it's worth it.
I'm pausing just because that hit me hard. It really, really did. It hit me hard because, we work with guys like this, to where like they don't have a financial worry in the world, running their businesses. They got great kids. They have a great wife. They have a big home. They have the nice cars. Yeah. And they are like, I don't know if I've ever been more unfulfilled in my life.
Yeah.
And you ask why, but what you just said, have you ever read the book or heard of the book called Inner Excellence by Jim Murphy?
No. Mm-mm. No, I got to write it down.
So, I'm a fan of therapy. I think everybody should do it. I really, really do, even proactively. But I wrote this quote down, just because it was insanely powerful. Let me read it to you because I think it really, really matters to what you just said. Okay, here it is right here. This is actually a quote from his book. We don't climb mountains to get to the top. We climb to the top to see who we become trying to get there.
There you go.
Right. And even as I think like about my own business, my own organization, of like, what were some of the most fulfilling parts of it? It was that journey of the discovery of everything that we've discovered up until this time. Right. And what I have found in my own entrepreneur journey, the times where I'm most unfulfilled is where I'm staying up there above the clouds and I haven't made that journey back down into the darkness. And the words that you're speaking are exactly my own battle. Like, even though we mentor guys to do this, but as well as I do that when you're a leader or when you're a coach, yes, you pour into people and yes, you know all the answers. It's kind of like it, for those, I can't remember. It's like, my wife loves the movie, The Wedding Planner, for those who don't wed, plan, that kind of thing. But like, we go through this stuff. When I say we, like guys like me and you, we go through this too. Yeah. But the biggest battle that I have faced even personally, right, is like, I don't know if I have the bandwidth. Like I've got so many other things that I have to tackle. I don't know if I have the bandwidth. And here, you want to hear something else really kind of I'll just be freaking honest as the day is long. That journey back down is a little scary.
Terrifying.
Like there's that part of me like, I don't know if I want to go there.
I want to do it.
Like that it's going to suck down there. Right. So yeah, let's talk about that. Like, what are those? And I understand you gave us like the core values, you got to audit your core values, you have your values, make clear decisions, but how do we take that very, very first brave step down and be like, you know what? I got to get back. I got to get back down. I got to get to lower altitude right now to do some of this dark work. How do we get the bravery to do that?
Man, that's a really, yeah.
Can I just add one more thing to that?
Sure.
Because I think this one's too, the bravery and creating the time to do it, because entrepreneurs are so crunched with time. So we'll justify like, I just don't have time for it. My calendar's full. So like those two battles, the bravery and the time.
So for my scenario, it was like, okay. Everything happens gradually, then suddenly. Bankruptcy, divorce, weight loss or weight gain. It's gradual and then sudden. No one ever feels the creep. So it's called entrepreneurial drift. I talk about it in the book, is that we slowly drift until you're almost too far to be able to stay connected. My scenario, if it wasn't for my wife having the courage to be an absolute warrior and throw down the gauntlet and just say, you need to figure this out and fix it. Like, you don't get to do this. For me, at that point, there were no other options. Like, it was okay. Like it became almost an ultimatum. Like, and so how do you do that if you're not there yet? Right. So there's a process of you got to get then really honest with where does this go if you choose to do nothing? Like if you choose to do nothing, like where will this go? And do you need to wait to get there before you make a change? So creating the pain of staying the same, like you almost have to manufacture the worst case scenario and go there and really feel that before you can then go, well, I guess the shit doesn't feel as dark anymore if like this, like, because if this continues, if you keep doing this, and then all of a sudden you're not going to get to walk your kids down the aisle. They don't want to talk to you. Like you're not going to have any, like you're going to like drink yourself to death or, you know, like all the things, like go worst case and really get there and go there to feel the difference, to be able to go through. Like there's that, like the bravery, like the courage, that like something. People don't feel brave when they're doing something courageous. They feel scared shitless, and they had to do it anyway. Only post mortem, you go, that was really courageous. And you're like, thanks. That I was scared shitless. I didn't have an option. You were so courageous. Cool. That was horrible. I can't believe I made it through. Right. So like, I know we say those things and like, it feels cool to say it, but like in the moment, it's real, it's messy. Right. And so I was fortunate enough to have somebody to take me there. If you're not there yet, then you need a trusted guide to be able to pull back the curtain and reveal. Like, it's almost like the ghosts of Christmas past. Like, it's almost like Scrooge. Like, he didn't change until his future was fully revealed. If you go down this path, Tiny Tim dies. No one will remember you. Everything you created is for nothing. They literally laugh at your grave. They stole from your bed. Like, they took the clothes off of you and sold it for pennies. Like, you have no impact. Like, that has to be discovered and then lived and believed in order to then create that awareness, that change. Right? Because until the pain of staying the same is greater than the pain of change, nothing changes, nothing moves. So either life slaps you with it, or you've got to create it. There's no escaping that pain is required. And a lot of times when people say like, I've attempted it and I failed, probably because they haven't really tapped into the reality of the pain yet until the pain is great enough.
Yeah, it's like until there's no other choice. But man, it's such a relief to hear you say that, you know, to be like, because there's a lot. I mean, social media is very deceptive. You know, it's like people yell at the top of the mountains, like, I crushed it, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. But like, how much bravery did it take you to make those big moves, right? It had to have taken courage. And quite frankly, you're right. Some of it just feels like shit. You know, you're just like, holy crap, that was freaking hard as hell.
Well, it's still hard. I mean, it's still hard. It's an everyday thing. And yet I relish the discomfort of now crafting and creating the life that I almost didn't have. Because if I was left to my own devices, I wouldn't be living this life. And so the discomfort that I have now is the blessing that I prayed for. And so now my daily discomforts, I relish. I'm so grateful for them because I almost didn't have them.
That makes so much sense, man. Can we get to the time? Because no matter who you are, right? Yeah. Whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're, you know, like even like the average person, like, never mind. I'm not going to share that story because this person, I know who they are, but so like, I think we all know people, like, let's just take like people who want to be healthier, right? Mm-hmm. I don't have time to work out. I don't have time to eat right. So I'm just not going to do it. Right. So it's always this time thing. And I think entrepreneurs also feel that, you know, our time is very, very valuable, right? We eat what we kill. So like to take that step back and give ourselves permission to do some deep work, a lot of entrepreneurs be like, I don't have time for that. How do we get over the time factor?
Well, number one is I think we overestimate what it takes and we underestimate the effectiveness of being purposeful, right? So my world, and here's the thing, intensity gets clicks, consistency transforms lives. It's 15 minutes a day. You got 15 minutes. Intentionality and then consistency that compounds. That's it. Like, I'm not asking for 75 days of hard, right? It, and here's the thing, that like that program transformed my life as well in a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
But it wasn't, but it didn't happen on day 75, right? It's still ongoing. So it's, again, we overestimate what it will take, and we don't give enough credit for how little can make an impact. And that's because we're entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
Right. However, small hinges move big doors. It's intentionality and consistency, awareness with action, and then reflection. So we have to continually close the feedback loop and then ask ourselves, okay, am I in alignment? Did I honor it? Am I energized by it? Were my decisions act like this? And then also plan and implement like these strategies. Okay, so on these days, I'm going to be doing this, and I'm going to get really intentional with my conversations at home, and I'm going to get really intentional with date nights, and I'm going to get really intentional with like eye contact and questions and the things. Because look, especially when it comes to like the love pillar, we think we've got to be like present for hours. My daughter does not want to talk to me for hours. She needs 12 minutes tops.
Yeah.
As long as she's felt, heard, like we engage, in her mind, we had the best night ever. My wife doesn't need me to just constantly be staring at her and like asking her questions, right? But when she's talking, I put the phone down completely. I don't look and, how many times have we had a conversation where like, yeah. And they're like, well, what did I say? And you're like, I don't know what you said. They're like, well, can you just give me a second? So like, it's down. It's okay, cool. Yes. Love that. Right. So it's intentionality, consistency, small hinges, big doors. It's not a lot. However, right, there's a roadmap. There's an efficient way of doing it without like flailing around. And it goes the same thing with your physical and your mental health. It's little changes, little moves, big doors over time. I mean, it's like, it's an endless process. However, you can experience massive results very quickly, like in less than 5 days. In less than 5 days, you can experience an awakening and an awareness, and there's some tactics and strategies that I can share with you that all of a sudden your wife, your spouse, your kids go, who are you? Man, we miss this person. Where have you been? We're so glad you're back.
I love that, man. You know, it's right now, you know, to talk about the time factor, right? So, right behind me, there is a guitar right there.
Yeah.
That
Nice.
I just got not too long ago. I've been trying to learn to play guitar for a while, and I always gave it up because I'm like, I have too many other important things to do, not play guitar. But of course, you know, time with your kids will always motivate the heck out of you. Like anytime, like my 18-year-old, which by the way, when they're a little older, they're a little harder to spend time together. He's taken an interest in guitar. So I bought a guitar and we hired an instructor. And all in my mind was like, I don't even know how I'm going to fit this in, but yet I want to hang out with my kid and do these lessons with him and practice with him. So the instructor literally said this. I was like, how many times should we practice? He was like, every day. And I was like, for how long? He's like, 20 minutes. That's it. Just 20 minutes. He's like, after that, your brain kind of gets a little fried and you start to strum. And if you're making mistakes, you kind of making the same mistakes over again.
Yeah.
20 minutes.
That's it.
And I'm like, and I've never actually been disciplined enough to actually do that every day. But here's what we've done for the past 5 days. We're learning Zombie by the Cranberries right now. And when I first picked that up, I'm like, so frustrated. This was 5 days ago. I'm like, I will never get this. And I'm like, I'm going to give myself 20 minutes a day for the next 5 days.
Yeah.
Me and my son are sitting there last night and I'm like, and I'm just strumming it. He's like, holy cow, man. He's like, So it all came together. How long you been practicing? I was like 20 minutes for the past 5 days. Like
That's
literally it just all started clicking, those tiny little micro moments in time just build upon each other. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can actually play this song. It's wild.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, and I love that, man.
And that's the hack, right? Like everyone wants to like ask the people that are where they desire to be, like, what's the secret? And like, it's literally that. They're like, I just keep doing the things. I just keep doing the things that you're not willing to do. And it's not big things. It's little things consistently over time. That's it.
I love that, man. Well, it goes back to your statement, discipline equals freedom, just like Jocko says. It's really, really true. I want to ask you, obviously, so hold up your book because I want to make sure all the folks on YouTube can see it. Bam! The Entrepreneur's Regret, your guide to having it all without risking it all.
The bottom line is the most important line.
The one book, the one book your family wants you to read. I love that tagline. Was that your idea?
Yeah.
Or was that, okay, I love that. That's great. That really hits it home. So tell us, number one, obviously, where people can find the book, but you have a really fantastic, generous offer for our audience.
Yeah, I wanted to make sure everyone listening to the podcast has everything. So I put together, there's going to be, everyone that's listening is going to get a free digital download of the book itself. So you can download the entire book, read it chapter by chapter, but I also put it together in a digestible, almost like course format with chapter highlights and outlines and like that you can take a look at and kind of process a little bit at a time. The other thing that I offered and put in there as well is I put together also a 12-week field guide, which is a guided journal companion that goes along with the book, and it goes chapter by chapter with the book for 12 weeks, daily intentional, like in the morning, setting intentionality and goals for the day. And then at the end of the day, recaps on how you lived a life of no regrets that day. And it goes along with the book as well. I also included for the digital download that 32-page North Star discovery process worksheet. It's in PDF form. You can go ahead and just download it, print it out, or just follow along with it and write it in your morning. I don't like, it's not meant to be completed in one sitting. So don't attempt. Give it the time that it takes to allow that process to come to the surface. You're going to start really learning a little bit about yourself. If you're just honest and you have a willingness to be honest with yourself in that. And I'm going to encourage you to go as deep as you can with it, because like, I'm not going to be reading it. We're not sharing it. Right. So, one of my coaches shared with me that the treasure that you're looking for is in the cave that you refuse to go into, right? So give yourself the opportunity to be vulnerable enough with yourself to then see what comes out of that. And then lastly, I created a custom GPT. It's called a 15-minute reset. It's a daily reset that goes in alignment with everything. You can just copy and paste the prompt into your chat GPT, and you can go in there every day and visit it. And it gives you a menu of what you want to work on today, whether it's the leadership pillar, whether it's your relationships or your love pillar, whether it's your life pillar and your physical and mental health. And it's going to prompt you and set you an intention for the day as well. It's just a little companion that goes with it. I want to give everybody everything I can in order to do this. Like, if you want to buy the book, you can go to Amazon, you can buy it, you can get it. And if I meet you in person, I'll sign it. Right. And yet I want to give everybody everything now because, like I said, look, I'm on a mission to save some families. And, if you're listening to this and it resonates with you and you have a desire for transformation, it's not too late. And I don't care where you are in the process. I don't care if you were just served papers and you think it's over. It's not over. Not if you're still willing to fight.
I love that, man. Well, we're going to have all the links in the show notes for everybody. We're going to have a copy of Matt's book, obviously, and all the resources that he just talked about today. All you guys have to do is go to thedadedge.com/1440 for this show. Again, thedadedge.com/1440. Matt, I got to tell you, this was really refreshing for me. A lot of these things, quite frankly, I needed to hear myself, and really just needed to recalibrate and just I always say, man, doing this podcast, I'm not the expert. I'm just the student that it's in the front row asking the questions. And
Yeah.
I know for a fact, my friend, I learned so much from you. I literally took 2 sides of notes as you were talking, just because everything you said today was absolute gold. So thank you so much for coming on today, man.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
Honored. Thank you so much for the invite, and so grateful to share.
Appreciate you, man. So like I said, guys, head on over to dadedge.com/1440. We'll have all the resources in there for you. Go out and live legendary. Take care.